Howdy, everybody. The state of Washington appears to believe that the First Amendment does not apply, or rather, that the free speech laws that are in place do not apply. The United States Constitution, the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I suppose since First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution says Congress, that maybe it could be argued that somehow the states actually do have the power to establish a religion. You'd have to argue that if I believe that the state of Washington is free to pass the laws against free speech. But right here we have the Washington State Constitution. Article 1, Section 5, freedom of speech. Every person may freely speak, write, and publish on all subjects, being responsible for the abuse of that right. So as we can see, even if someone wants to argue that somehow the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution doesn't really protect free speech laws that the state may create, the state constitution prevents the state from creating laws against free speech. But here we have some laws that from the Washington Administrative Code that some agency created that very, very blatantly prohibits free speech, allows, and under 162-32-040, harassment. They're saying that harassment based on an individual's sexual orientation or gender expression or gender identity is prohibited. Sexual orientation or gender expression or gender identity harassment in employment is offensive and unwelcome behavior serious enough to affect the terms and conditions of employment and which occurred because of an individual's sexual orientation or gender expression or gender identity and can be imputed to the employer. Here we have under number 2, prohibited conduct. Prohibited conduct may include but is not limited to the following. So even though they list many things, there are potentially more things that can be considered conduct that you are disallowed to engage in. First thing being asking unwelcome personal questions about an individual sexual orientation, gender expression, or gender identity, transgender status, or sex assigned at birth. Basically, if you ask someone, are you a man or a woman? That can be considered harassment. Also, with the whole idea that if anyone's ever been to a online dating website, that this kind of it kind of makes it impossible for them to put questions to determine sexual orientation, gender expression, gender idea, transgender status, or sex assigned at birth. I have to question what they mean by sex assigned at birth. If they're indicating that, the as far as genetics there, because nobody really has control over their sex that's assigned at birth. B, intentionally causing distress to an individual by disclosing the individual's sexual orientation, gender expression, or gender identity, transgender status, or sex assigned at birth against his or her wishes. Uh, that's if you go out and accidentally blurt that they're a gay or straight or whatever, and they didn't want people to know that. It's illegal to do so. Using offensive names, slurs, jokes, or terminology regarding an individual's sexual orientation or gender expression or gender identity. Meaning you can't joke, can't make jokes, you know, which would have to be obviously be a blatant infringement upon the right of free speech if you're not allowed to even joke about something. Slurs, it's like they're just saying that if you offend a person by what you say, that it's illegal. Because you have to look at this. They don't say they're not specifically singling out transgender people here, because sexual orientation involve doesn't only involve anything other than straight. It means that if you're, I mean, you can't even make a joke about a straight guy or a straight woman, or even just a man or a woman who is a man or a woman. You know, if you're making fun of a guy for being a guy, that's illegal. If you're making fun of a woman for being a woman, that's illegal. The whole make me a sandwich thing. If you say that in jest, it's illegal. You can go, you can lose your job or go to jail or lose your business for doing such a thing. D. The deliberate misuse of an individual's preferred name, form of address, or gender-related pronoun, except on legally mandated documentation, if the individual has not officially obtained a name change. So if you call Bruce Jenner, it's illegal because he's a transgender. Posting offensive pictures or sending offensive electronic or other communications. That meme where it shows, I believe it was Jenner photoshopped inside of a car that says having tranny issues. That's illegal, and you can go to jail or lose your job or whatnot for that. Unwelcome physical conduct. Well, there you go. That's actual harassment. I don't have a problem with that. Harassment in a place of publication, sexual orientation harassment or harassment based on general expression or gender identity in a place of public accommodation is offensive and unwelcome. Basically, they're saying it's offensive and not welcome, therefore it's illegal, looks like. So, there you have it. First Amendment appears to be either ignored or they decided it's been repealed in Washington.